Hi, welcome to day 8 with Pods with Posh and Pool. So day 8 of lockdown for us here in New Zealand. I know it's different around the world. And today our topic is caring for others. And in caring for others, it's actually quite selfish really, because in caring for others often makes us feel good about ourselves. So there you go. There's lots of benefits for caring for others. And what does caring for others mean? Listening, doing things, being kind, random acts of kindness. It can mean anything, can't it? Because we care for lots of people, don't we? Children, the elderly, family, friends, strangers. And there's lots and lots and lots of stories coming out over the last few days about caring for others, which has been really nice, hasn't it, Sue? We interviewed the chap from Corelli's the other day, Anthony, at one of our local cafes here. And then we also interviewed, who else did we interview?
We interviewed the principal of Belmont Intermediate School.
Oh, gosh, yes, we did.
All his children at the school, the staff, the parents in the community, and the children during lockdown. He was very inspiring yesterday.
Yeah, and both of the interviews that we talked about, both of them were basically talking about the care that they had for other people. And I think lots of stories like that are coming out at this time, which is really, really nice. And as Anthony said the other day from Corelli's, he said, it is who we are supposed to be. But we all get caught up in the fluff, the busyness of life, our responsibilities, expectations of others, that we're in this rat race and we're so busy trying to survive in our normal everyday lives that sometimes we forget to care for others. And then as soon as it comes to lockdown and there's all these people who are worried about their staff being paid, people are worried about their pupils at school and the parents, and handing out computers to make sure the children can have some education, and there's so many stories of caring for others that came out. It was so nice.
And it's interesting to think our listeners will have so many different people to care for at this time. And there's so many different situations where, for example, care homes, retirement homes have shut down, and where our listeners were maybe looking after people or visiting them can't now do so. An interesting thing I think to do in lockdown is actually to write a list of those people you would like to care for at this time. Some of us, like Joe and I, have got 4 children each living in our homes, and we can't do anything about our situation. But who outside those people in our bubble, as we call it in New Zealand, the people we're living with in lockdown, who else could we have on our list that we could care for during this time? Is there somebody elderly in the street you've seen? Is there a single parent family that you know of that you can message? Is there somebody that is struggling with loneliness? Is there somebody that struggles with depression? Write a list of those people, and I would suggest that you message them or even drop a little card through the mailbox when you go for a walk. But write a list of those people. It could be uncles, it could be aunts, it could be relatives, it could be friends, it could be people that you have seen in the supermarket. You know where they live, but you don't know who they are. And actually then to just be aware that outside the circle that you're in, the bubble you're in, and the normal people you care for, there are people that would probably love a text from you or a message. First-time parents, first-time mothers, very, very lonely situation to be in. And now I'm hearing of hospitals in England where the fathers are not allowed to go and deliver the babies with the wives. How hard is that? How isolating is that? Single parents really struggle on their own with loneliness. The elderly struggle on their own. There's so many categories of people. Who could you bring into that caring category for yourself in that circle?
Because we've had times in our life, haven't we, Sue, where things haven't been going quite so well, and just a random act of kindness, and whether it is just a smile on the street, a hello, or a note through the door, or somebody just doing something like maybe a flower delivered, or somebody paying for your petrol, or your shopping, they mean so much, don't they? And your shopping or your smile, there's no big difference. You know, you're not more grateful for one than the other. It just makes you feel that little bit better when somebody else has extended their hand to you. Either it's a hand of friendship or a hand of something else. It just makes us feel a little bit better as humans, doesn't it? Because we're here for love and connection.
It makes you feel absolutely amazing. As you say, we're here for connection. My mother's motto used to be, think of others before yourself. And she lived her life by that rule. And she would always pass by the bus stop in the day where not many people had cars, and she would stop at the bus stop and she'd say, who would like a lift into town? Because invariably everybody's going only one direction into town. And she would always pick up little old ladies, she'd visit little old ladies, she would always be helping people out. And it was just amazing to think of the way she's passed away now, but the way that she lived her life was extraordinary. Actually, she lived by think of others by before yourself. She was caring for others, and she didn't do it in an unhealthy way. She didn't do it in a rescuing way. She didn't do it to the detriment of looking after herself. She was constantly thinking about other people. And we do that as mothers, don't we? You know, both mothers, 8 children, and we constantly think about everybody's needs the whole time. We're constantly thinking, we're multitasking all the time. But outside of our own bubbles, in this time of lockdown, self-isolation, people are more isolated than they would normally be.
And also, what I said earlier, like being kind to others fills us with happiness as well. So I've got a little quote, and it says, the more we genuinely care about others, the greater our own happiness and inner peace. And it's true. It's the most selfless thing you can do, by being kind to other people.
But also, interestingly, is the motivation behind why you're doing something for other people. Do you do it begrudgingly, or do you do it with a heart filled with joy? And I certainly know from being a mother, lots of the times I'm doing things, I'm very negative because I have to do the washing and the shopping and the cooking and the cleaning, and I make that very known sometimes. But what is the heart behind it is very important.
But again, you know, we talk about this a lot. We talk about the word acceptance a lot, don't we? And as a mother, as a single mother, it's really hard sometimes. And it's hard being a parent, full stop. And when you are the sole person who is responsible for all that stuff, it does seem like a real big burden at times. But however, once you're in, if you have those days where you just accept it, right, okay, it's all my responsibility, it's fine, I'm going to do this. But, you know, you can still dish out chores for everybody else. But once you are in that acceptance mode of caring for others, it actually flows way nicer, because we're not having that inner turmoil, that inner battle with ourselves. We accept it, we do it, and it's actually becomes more pleasurable to do, even as a mother.
And the joy, so right, the joy is amazing. My mother died when I was quite young, but my father passed away 12 years ago before we moved to New Zealand. And we nursed him when he was dying, and the pleasure was extraordinary. To be with my father on his journey into death, passing away, was just like watching a miracle. It was incredible. He was suffering. So I'm not saying the suffering was an attractive thing to see, but to be able to be there and hold his hand, visit him every day. And the children were younger then, so Henry would cycle to the paper shop and buy him a newspaper every day. We'd go and call in on him in the morning and the evening, and sit with him in the garden and take him for walks in the wheelchair, and he was on oxygen. But it was such a joy to care for him and be with him in that process. And he slowly deteriorated over not many weeks, actually. And even to be there when he was dying and to hold his hands when he couldn't speak any longer, to have the children there. And the children said, you know, the greatest gift was that he taught them how to die with dignity. And we don't get taught how to die, and yet they experience this amazing, beautiful journey. And lots of people at the school gates said, so sorry to hear your father's died. You're not going to take the children to the funeral, are you? Because that's not appropriate. And I said, but they've been there through this incredible journey of holding him in his death. Of course we're going to celebrate his life at a funeral. And yet it was really interesting, the sort of response by the community that you don't allow children to be part of that. And yet caring is caring in struggle, in suffering. We don't just care for people because there's something amazing to benefit from it. We care, and there is benefits and there are joys that come out, no matter what the situation is for everybody.
Yeah, you're right. But if you're just going to do something for somebody with an expectation of getting something back, then that's not going to work. That's not how it really works. You can do nice things for people and it will come back to you, as you say, in very different ways, in different pleasures, or even lessons as well. But don't do it with an expectation of getting something back. Only actually do it if you really want to do something as well.
Mm.
Do, you know, them little acts of kindness. And you don't know how much of a difference you can make to somebody's life by just smiling at them, that little bit of encouragement for life, or that little bit of joy in their day. And you pass a few words with people who are walking down the street. I know we're in lockdown, but I can see some like little things happening, you know, along the beach, people having like little conversations from very quite far away, and it's nice to see, because you don't know who's lonely, you don't know what they're going through. Another little quote I read, which was said, even the smallest act of caring for another person is like a drop of water. It will make ripples throughout the entire pond.
Wow.
And it does, because you pass on a smile, they pass on a smile, they pass on a smile, and the smile continues around the village, around the world. And there's lots of little stories, and there's lots of stories out there that people have felt suicidal or at their lowest ebb, and somebody's just done something really nice for them that day, and it's saved their life. It's brought them around. It's give them that little seed of hope. We talk about seeds a lot as well. Plant the seed of hope, plant the seed of joy, plant the seed of caring, because we all want to be cared for at the end of the day as well, don't we?
We do. And if you are listening to this podcast and you are in a situation where you need caring for, that is okay too. And learn to ask. When I was at my lowest and my children had been abducted and I was pregnant with my fourth child and I was alone and very frightened, I would go to the local church, and it was incredible because there would be people that would pray for me. There would be people that did a food roster for me. There would be people that would welcome me into church. There would be people to talk to. There was amazing, preaching. And I would just receive and receive and receive. And the vicar used to say, if you can volunteer in the church to help others. And somebody said to me, Sue, you don't volunteer at this time. You need to receive all the help you can receive. So if you're in a situation where you're sick, where you're struggling with life, where you've had a failed relationship, where you're in trauma, where you're feeling depressed, then it's not for you to be in a situation where you're going out to care for others. That's not what we mean at all. Then for you, you're in a situation where you need to ask for help. And I was really grateful. I remember going to this church saying, give me all the help I can get. I need your food. I need your prayers. I need your support. I need your love. I need you to come and visit me, because it was so tough. So don't be afraid to ask. And it's so hard to ask for help, but go to your village church, go to your village shop, go put a notice up somewhere. I'm an elderly parent. I'm on my own. I've got nobody. Is there anybody I can adopt as a grandchild? Is there any family out there that could welcome me, embrace me? Just put yourself out there. Social media is great. Connect with people. And if you see someone smile at you in the street, then respond, talk to them, and it might be they've got something to give you. Don't be afraid to ask, because there are a lot of listeners that are in a situation. They are first-time mums. They are elderly. They are in a situation where they're maybe in a home and can't have relatives visit, but there's other people nearby that can. So please connect, put yourself out there, because the world wants to help. We want to support, but sometimes we don't know who.
But also there's the flip side of that, and because sometimes you literally can't help other people, and I get that, because you are in a state where you need all the help. But then I read this beautiful story once about this poor lady that had lost her husband and her child. She was, when you lose a child, that's the lowest, that's one of the hardest things anybody can go through. And there's a little cat, like a stray cat. So she started feeding the cat, and the cat kept coming back. And then she noticed there was people around her that didn't have very much, so she started making them biscuits. And throughout doing things like that, she built up a little community of people, because she'd lost her purpose when she lost her husband and her child, and she needed to regain her purpose, and her purpose was caring for others. So within her despair and grief and heartache, she still had it in her to go and do little things for other people. It started off with a cat, then it turned out to the children in the neighbourhood, and then the needy in the neighbourhood, the elderly. And within it, she started to feel better, and she got her life back, and she found passion and purpose again. So, as I keep saying, sometimes it can be the most selfish way to be selfless.
And not only did she find passion and purpose, but she created her own little community. She made those connections herself.
And it's so beautiful stories. Yes, you can read. Go for it.
I'm going to read you a little story, which is called Mirror with a Malfunction. There was once a boy who was very rich and clever. He had practically everything a boy could ever want, but he was only interested in the most rare and curious of objects. This happened to him in relation to a very old mirror, and he convinced his parents to buy it from a mysterious old man. When the mirror arrived home, the boy went to see his reflection in it. His face looked very sad indeed. He tried smiling and making funny faces, but his reflection continued its sad expression. Surprised, the boy went off to buy sweets. He came home as happy as he could be to look in the mirror, but his image was still sad looking. He bought all kinds of toys and old junk, but forever looked sad in the mirror. Fed up, the boy struck the mirror off in a corner. Crikey, what a terrible mirror. It's the first time I've seen a mirror that didn't work properly. That same afternoon, he went into the street to play and buy a few toys, but on his way to the park, he saw a little boy who was crying his heart out. The boy was crying so much and looked so lonely that the little witch boy went over to help him and see what had happened. The little one told him he'd lost his parents. Together, the two boys set off in search of them. As the little boy wouldn't stop crying, our boy spent his money on buying him sweets to cheer him up. Finally, after much walking, they found his parents, who were out looking for him and very worried. The rich boy said goodbye and walked off towards the park. But seeing the time, he decided to turn around and head for home, without having been able to play, without toys, and without money. At home, he went to his room and noticed a shining light in the corner, the same corner he had left the mirror in. Seeing this, he went over to the mirror and realized the light was coming from his own body, so radiant with happiness he had become. And so he understood the mystery of that mirror, the only mirror which could faithfully reflect the true joy of his own heart. He realized it was true. He felt genuinely happy at having helped that little boy. And since then, each morning when he looked in the mirror and failed to see a special shine, he already knew what he had to do to bring it back.
Oh, I got goosebumps when you read that. That's so lovely.
Isn't that gorgeous?
So beautiful, so poignant, so perfect. You could not have rounded up this episode any better.
It's lovely.
So I think on that beautiful note, we'll leave that with our listeners. And care for yourself, care for others. Let's all be kind.